Well, the Supreme Court, which has passed a significant interim direction in the CJP protest. Let's break that update for our viewers, where this interim orders that have come in from the Supreme Court, which is ordered that all CCTV footage and other evidences need to be preserved. Notices that have now been issued to the government, which is the centre, as well as state governments, including Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, West Bengal and Uttar Pradesh, where protests were also held. The court, meanwhile, has directed that no coercive action would be taken against the protesters for the time being, and has ordered the release of all arrested students who are minors, that means under the age of 18. Let's connect with Harish on this. Harish, updates that are coming in from the Supreme Court. Of course, the CJI are making certain observation as to why transparent probe is necessary. Please break down the details of what this interim order is all about.
Yes, Amita, very significant, a very balanced order as far as the need for the demand made by the protesters against the police and also police against the protesters are concerned. This is the operative portion. The Chief Justice has said the allegations prima facie warrant consideration of a fair and independent probe, which must also address the concerns of families of over 200 injured police personnel, and union and states have been asked to place their versions on record before the court considers constituting an independent committee. So, Amita, basically, Chief Justice says that in a day or two, he will constitute a high-power committee, and the composition of that, before deciding on that, he has sought the view of the center and view of all the states where protests had taken place. Very significantly, not only the center, Chief Secretaries of Delhi, Maharashtra, Bihar, Kerala, Madhya Pradesh and Uttar Pradesh where protests and violence had taken place. We have been taught, and let me, for the benefit of our viewers, read out some very important observations.
Absolutely, we're breaking them down one by one. Harish, I'm told that Priyank and Dipankar are also connected with us. Priyank, this is important because the SC also made a note of how policemen have also been injured in these protests. But this is coming in no less from the Supreme Court, which is asking for a high-powered probe panel that could be formed. Priyank.
Yes, certainly, it's an important development considering the kind of violence which has happened here in the national capital is concerned. See, the case was taken up by the Apex Court. There were several petitions which were clubbed yesterday, and now the court heard every aspect. What is the important outcome of this particular hearing is that the court has decided that there will be high-power committee because the Delhi police was certainly under the perception that they have been the one who had attacked the student. That's why Solicitor General Tushar Mehta very clearly stated before the court that we are not against the student, but you have to also understand that more than 250 police persons have been injured in the kind of violence, and we have also got the FRS data which shows that around 3,000 individuals who were having criminal record had come there. That was a point because of which the Apex Court also decided, the CJI himself who was hearing this particular case, decided that now it's high time that there should be a nationwide format. There has to be norms which need to be followed. That's why a high-power committee has been constituted so that the court can lay down all those procedures which need to be done for any kind of further protest is concerned. I tell you,
losing that audio with you, Priyank, but in the meantime, let me go across to Dipankar. Dipankar, now this is also coming in from the center side, which also supports an independent probe and inquiry.
Well, yes, the Solicitor General of India has very categorically said that they support the independent inquiry after the Chief Justice of India said that an independent thorough probe has to be done into this entire case. But the Solicitor General has also pointed out that there were situations in this that miscreants had infiltrated the protesters and they created an issue. He also went on to point out that there were 3,000 people who have been identified who have some kind of criminal antecedent. Now, and all these details were placed on record while the Solicitor General was making these arguments before the Chief Justice of India, before the Apex Court of the country. And taking those into consideration, and also the fact that the court has to hear the plea of the protesters, where the court categorically took cognizance of incidents of journalists being attacked, of people being beaten with lathis which had nails embedded in them. And after taking all these into consideration, the court has issued notice and sought response from all the states where the protests had happened, and also directed that any minor who does not have any kind of criminal antecedent should be released immediately, and has also said that the police should preserve all the CCTVs and all the documents, the evidence, the notices that were issued by the police, the body camera footage. All these has to be preserved by the police, and then after perusing all these things, will the court announce the composition of the high-powered committee, which the court has...
Because the court has issued a notice to the chief secretaries of Delhi, Maharashtra, Bihar, Kerala, Madhya Pradesh and Uttar Pradesh as well, where these protests were reported. But Priyank, this is important to note as far as when it comes to not keeping in detention as far as minors who may be involved in this protest, but there is a certain restriction as far as those having criminal antecedents is concerned. This is something which has been highlighted squarely by the Supreme Court, because you were there, you have seen the kind of technology that seems to have been used by the police to identify rogue elements into the protest.
Yes, Amita. See, we are talking about the national capital, which has comparatively a better technological, advancement as compared to other states are concerned. What had happened here in Delhi is that the Delhi police had used the FRS software, which has a data of around 20 lakh individuals who have gone through some sort of criminal cases against them. The moment these faces resembling to the data which is there in the FRS is being picked up, that data is noted on the main control room center, which has certainly identified that in the 3 days of protest, where you can calculate around 30,000 individuals were there, 3,000 people were having bad character and criminal antecedents, which means 10% of the crowd was of the bad character. Now coming back to the point, any data or any kind of letter to the Delhi police before the protest, because they knew it very well that if the crowd number goes up, they won't be in a position to control it. And if the letter could have been signed, Amita, it could have been clearly mentioned that any act or any kind of violence which happened during this particular protest, you'll have to be liable for this. The CJP wanted to stay away from that, because we know that both the leaders have some sort of association earlier with the Aam Aadmi Party, and we have seen the manner in which Aam Aadmi Party had...
one of the three demands that the CJP had set forth, of course, withdrawal of the FIRs, not just in Delhi but in other states as well, because this ultimatum that has been issued to the government till about today remains to be seen exactly what happens from here on. But this is now coming in from no less than the Supreme Court. But Harish, has there been a timeline that has been issued by the Supreme Court by passing these interim orders as to what time it is expected on part of the centre and the states to respond, so that a high-powered committee can be constituted? Harish?
Samita, as far as that question is concerned, the particular timeline has not been laid down, but the Supreme Court has said that within 3-4 days, all these aspects will be considered. But before in 3-4 days, the high power committee will be constituted. But before that, the Chief Justice bench has sought to know the view of this centre, Delhi government, and also the other states where violent protests this place, like Maharashtra, Bihar, Kerala, Madhya Pradesh, and Uttar Pradesh, and the Supreme Court making it unequivocally clear that the allegations prima facie warrant consideration of a fair and independent probe, which must also very significantly address the concern of family of over 200 injured police personnel. And the other very important remark coming in from the Chief Justice, Amita, is that no action against protesters for time being, release all students below 18 years who have been arrested, release all students without any criminal antecedent, and emphatically saying we will lay down all India protocol. Once guidelines are laid down, anyone who took law in their own hands will be brought to book. Whoever has used excessive force against innocents, law must take its course. So very, very important observations coming in from the Supreme Court Chief Justice's bench. Back to you, Amita.
Absolutely, because talking about this high-powered committee, Dipankar, this is also to note as far as the police's version is concerned, and that is what S.G. Mehta has kept forth, saying that there were individuals with criminal antecedents, miscreants, rogue elements who also became a part of this protest there to fuel unrest. And of course, when it comes to the police officials as well, they too were injured in the protest that happened on the 20th of July.
Well, yes, the Solicitor General very categorically had submitted this particular aspect before the Chief Justice of India, that there were 3,000 people who were with some kind of criminal antecedents, and he also went on to bifurcate the number that he had pointed out to the Chief Justice of India as to there were a number of people who were previously booked for murder, for attempt to murder, for cases of robbery and dacoity, and all these things were very categorically submitted before the Chief Justice of India, after which the Chief Justice of India took a view that a thorough independent probe has to be done, where fairness is to be given to both the sides to give their submissions, and because of which the Chief Justice of India has sought a response from all the parties before creating any kind of composition for the high-powered committee, in order to see that justice should be done in a fair manner to each and every person. And that is the reason also why the Chief Justice of India might have gone on to say that he has to take into consideration the petitions or the pleas of the 200 family of the of the police officers who were injured, the 200 police officers who were injured. He has to also hear the plea of all those people.
So yes. So a balanced point of view is something which the Supreme Court is striving to achieve here. Of course, time being that the notices have been issued to the government and to the states where these student protests have happened. But when we speak of Delhi in particular, Priyank, how many FIRs in all that have been registered so far? And in what cases that we are now looking at? Because if these cases are now to be withdrawn, what are we now looking at? Because would that amount to, as far as disturbance of law and order is concerned, or stopping the policemen from doing their duty?
See, Amita, overall, if I would say that the quashing of the FIR is now not so significant, because the apex court itself has taken note of the kind of violence which has happened here in the national capital. The high power committee will certainly go through every aspect of the FIR detail. The high power committee will go through the CCTV footage, and anyone who should be liable for taking any kind of penal action, that could be accountable for that. So I would say that the CJP stand of taking back the FIR has bounced back on them after the apex court has itself constituted a high power committee to look into the protest which has happened. While coming back to a question, there were 20 FIRs which were filed in this particular case. 14 FIRs were for violence. 1 FIR was for flying drone in the no-fly zone, which is near the parliament or the president house, because it's not allowed for any private individual to fly drone, because this is a high security zone. The rest of the 5 FIRs, Amita, was related to the assault on the journalists. So if you see, the 5 FIRs of assault on journalists has been taken up by the apex court. Then on the other side, the court has also constituted a high power committee which will look into the kind of lapses which has happened either from the protester side or from the police side. So the CJP was thinking that they can dominate the terms, they can do violence on the streets, and they can get away with this. But the court observation of constituting a high power committee, I would say, will look into all the aspects, and certainly those culprits who have to be liable before the court of the law could be punished now.
Yes, because that is now coming in, because the center itself is also supporting this independent probe. I mean, you know, Harish, if you are still connected, because it has very categorically stated that as far as violence is concerned, it weren't students, but it was some rogue elements or antisocial elements who wanted to spread the fire or who wanted to fuel the unrest. That is now coming in from the SG. As far as student involvement is concerned, they wanted a peaceful protest.
Yes, that's right, Amita. In this context, what Solicitor General Tushar Mehta told the court is very important. He said, we are with the students. If students have been attacked, it's sad, it's very serious, but there is another aspect to it. 250 policemen were also injured and need to take up their cause also. Otherwise, we will be demoralizing them. Apparently, some miscreants have got into it uninvited and they have become uninvited guests and become co-hosts. We will place the data in court. Center has supported independent probes. SG says government do not believe, subject to inquiry, that students were involved in violence during protests. Miscreants appear to have infiltrated the protest. Supreme Court said there is always danger of discrediting peaceful protests. Remember, Amita, yesterday, in fact, Bhaktosh and Priyank had reported how the police has identified 3,000 persons, out of which there are several people charged with crimes like murder, attempt to murder, rape. And this is exactly what the Solicitor General told the court and has very clearly said that these data will be placed before the court.
Yes. And Dipankar, when we speak of technology that may have been used, it is still not clear if police has in fact called certain students there for inquiry using the facial recognition technology. I believe that matter was also taken up in the court.
Well, yes, that matter has also been taken up before the court. And incidentally, a similar plea has also been before the Delhi High Court, where they are also saying that there was surveillance of 24/7 surveillance at the Jantar Mantar and the protest area. So these matters are before the court. And see, in such a situation where a mob or where protest is happening, it is required for the state government to maintain a record of all the people who are coming into the protest, who are joining the protest. And certain CCTV cameras, certain technologies are used in order to identify people. And because of that only, that Solicitor General Solicitor General made the statement that there were 3,000 people who had incidents about murders or about attempt to murders, rape, dacoity, robbery. All these cases, people were there in that protest, and that is how he could bifurcate. So there are issues with the technology that have been used, which have been coming up before the Delhi High Court as well as the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court will look into this matter. The Chief Justice of India has said that they will look into the matter at the appropriate point of time. But as of now, the concern of the court is regarding a thorough inquiry to be done in this entire case in order to be fair and in order to be just.
As far as these interim orders passed by the Supreme Court, this notice that has been issued to the center, notice that have been also issued to the states where student protests happen, another directive that calls for the release of the students without having any criminal history, and release of all of the students who are below the age of 18, no coercive action on the protesters for some time, and all evidences, CCTV footages, and that need to be preserved, and a high-powered probe panel could be formed, and the Chief Justice of India himself is in a favor of holding a transparent and an independent inquiry. Harish, Priyank, Dipankar, appreciate you joining us here on the broadcast. This is now coming in from the Supreme Court of India with regards to the protest that happened last week at Jantar Mantar. We're going to head into a short break.